definitions for almost everything that we need to discuss. There is not much detail, and it has an historical background also. Anyway, it's our after Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Our subject is the Islamic nominate finance contract. So should we start now or wait for a minute or two? It's already 6:01.
Okay, if you wanna, we can wait like 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, let's give them 2-3 minutes.
Okay, sure.
جيب لك الحبة
تبع 7:15.
تبع
هذول التنتين الشرائح اللي محطوطين بالعلبة
ليش ما تخليها بنفس الشريحة؟
هاتي جيب الشريحة أو حبة لحالها، خلي الشريحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Our session today, that's session 7, we are going to discuss the Islamic finance product. But really, in this session, we will begin discussing them, and we will start with the nominate contract. They are called nominate, عقود مسمات. For those of you who know Arabic, nominate because they are well known throughout history, discussed many times. They are defined and have become well known that you only need to mention the name of it and you know all its characteristics and requirements, etc., etc. These are contracts that are practiced in all societies, really, and not an invention of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, or the invention of his companions or our scholars. These are contracts well known, but they are well detailed and named also in our classical fiqh for many years. Before that, we are going to have a little introduction about that. And so let's see here. The issues that we will discuss is a general overview of Islamic finance contract, component of a contract, definition, etc. Then Islamic finance contract, the definition and its effect and its conditions, its components. We will review quickly the return in Islamic finance. Then we will discuss the main classical nominate finance contract, especially the sale first, their characteristics, then the sale contract and its different forms, sale finance contract. Now, you remember we have established already the idea that Islamic financial intermediation is in fact a kind of dual intermediation. It is commercial intermediation in a sense that it buys and sells, but also its commercial activity is only financial, limited for financial objective. That makes it doesn't make decisions on its own in buying and selling. Rather, it makes a decision to buy based on request from a customer, and it remains more specialized in the financing, but it has certain commercial aspect, as we noticed before. And in fact, we will look at it now in more detail at that same concept. As an overview, let's take the Islamic finance contract may be divided into two groups: classical contract and hybrid contract. The classical contract are usually called nominate contract, al-uqud al-musammat, and they are well known throughout history since the time of Imam Malik and Imam Abu Hanifa. Remember, Abu Hanifa died in the year 150 of Hijrah, which means his life was really mainly in the first half of the 2nd century of Hijrah. Almost the same thing is for Imam Malik. Imam al-Shafi'i, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, and Imam Ahmad were a bit later in the second half and beginning of the 3rd century. But Imam Malik also died in the year 179 of Hijrah. And these contracts are well known and defined, and all their conditions and how their modus operandi, how they are to be applied, are discussed since that time and well established in the Islamic classical writings. There are variety of sale, and variety of lease, and also variety of sharing contract. Sale contract, of course, is an exchange contract. It transfers ownership the moment the contract is concluded. The buyer becomes owner of the sold item, and the seller becomes owner of the price. Now, the price could be a debt, and because when we talk about finance, always in finance we have the concept of debt comes, but the debt need not to be only in cash. It could be also in kind, depending on the kind of finance contract. Any sale finance contract fulfills the conditions of being asset-based because it requires goods or assets as the object of the sale. So that's obvious. Islamic finance contract have to fulfill two sets of requirements. This is very important, in fact, because we apply them in our lives, in say in Islamic banks in Turkey, in Luxembourg, in Belgium, in France. There is a branch of a Moroccan Islamic bank that practices that. In UK, there are 5 Islamic banks, and in anywhere in America and Canada, there are several companies, not banks, but companies that offer Islamic finance contract. Also in the US, there are two, at least two, probably more, but I'm aware of two who offer appropriate Islamic finance contract, one in Detroit, a bank, a community bank there, and another bank, also a small bank in Chicago. So they exist where they have to fulfill, of course, the requirement of the law in the land that they live in addition to the Sharia requirement. Fortunately, these requirements of Sharia and law are usually not difficult to reconcile. There are rare cases. I remember when I was living in Indiana, in Indianapolis, I noticed that there is a federal law that requires a banking institution, an institution that is licensed as a bank, is required to give depositors interest above zero. It cannot give zero. So it must give interest above zero. This is kind of federal requirement, but that does not apply to finance companies, for instance, and does not apply even to credit unions. It applies to institutions that are licensed as banks. So this is kind of requirement, but it's not really a requirement for financing. It's requirement for the banking sector only. And financing, of course, lots of financing is done outside the banks. Okay, so both sets of requirement, legal requirement, are necessary, and fortunately they can, in most of the times, can be reconciled together. Most conditions are very similar, and we will notice what are specific for the Islamic Sharia. Components of different kinds of Islamic banks. And in fact, even similarly, you can take marriage. Is marriage in a sense an exchange contract that requires the two wills of the two parties and require each of them can make certain conditions? Yes, that's the way marriage is treated under the law and under also the Sharia, but not exactly. It is not exactly an exchange contract, although it has several exchange elements that are negotiated between the two parties. And by the way, marriage in Islamic Sharia does not require at all commingling the property of the two spouses. Each spouse will continue to have property before marriage, and any property earned during marriage independent from the other spouse. So there is no mixing of properties unless willingly is done by an agreement between the two spouses. This is a difference, an important difference between the Latin marriage that is common in all Western countries, Europe, including UK and United States and Canada, and the Islamic marriage. Latin marriage has that mix. They consider it a form of partnership. Islamic marriage, no, it is not. But anyway, let's go back to component of sale contract. Obviously, we have two parties, buyer and seller. We need the pronouncement from both of them also, like offer and acceptance. And we need the object of the sale and the price that is put. And sale could have the price could be in cash, or it could be in another item, and it is a kind of sale remains. Even barter is in fact a kind of sale. Maybe we can include here also leasing, because leasing is also a kind of sale. When we come to leasing, we will see that we will define it as it is a sale of usufruct. The usufruct, or the utility, the usability of an item that can live longer than the period of its usufruct. So that item can be leased. So we can separate the usability from the corpus. Usability could be owned by the rentier or the lessee, and the corpus remains in the ownership of its original owner. So it's a kind of exchange contract that will have the same component, the same three sets of components: parties, pronouncements, and object and price. Component of a sharing contract. Of course, parties could be two or more, need not to be only two. You have pronouncement, and you need objective. What is the objective of making this partnership or this corporation or this company that we are creating? And once we determine also an objective, could be general or even limited, even in one kind of trade or in any kind of trade also. You will need also to determine the management. How is it going to be managed? In other words, how the objective is going to be achieved. Who will manage it, and what is the style of management also. And that also requires distribution. How are we distributing profit and loss of that sharing outcome, or sharing, say, company or corporation? Now, when we look at contributory contracts, they are finance contract also, because giving a gift to a friend or to your sister-in-law is definitely financing. But now contributory contract require one will. The other will is not needed really, does not initiate the contract, and does not confirm even the contract. It may remain simply silent, negative. Not taking any action. That means accepting also the gift that is given, and gift is an example. But we have some other contracts that really, we call them one will contract, as we will see them later. For instance, when you make a last will. A last will is a form of contract, but it is a contract made only by one will. You don't need at all to consult to whom are you giving or to what objective are you giving funds in your last will, and that will go under the Anglo-Saxon laws. It is considered two parties. You have to determine a manager of the last will. But in Sharia, no, it is in fact only one will contract. You don't need to determine. If you don't determine, after the death, the court may determine a manager, or the court may take the charge in implementing your last will. You don't need to have it a contract between you and a manager. Like when I made a living trust in America, for my family, my wife and myself, we made a living trust. So it was considered a contract between two parties, Monzer and Monzer Kahf as founder, and Monzer and Monzer Kahf as trustee. So these are the two parties that we agreed together to make blah, 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 all these conditions. And to me, it's really a joke to say that I made a contract with myself. Actually, it is a contract with, it's one will contract, and it's not two will contract. So last will is so. The same thing, waqf is a one will contract. A gift is a one will contract. We will see later that some kind of contributory contract may require additional will, but not really for the contract itself, but for some of the results of the contract. Like, for instance, we have a contract that I did not find an English word for it, really. Probably there is in the dictionary. When you give an item in kind on borrowing basis, like you give your car to your friend for a day or for a trip. This is called in Arabic and in Islamic fiqh, ariya, contract of ariya, and that distinguishes it from contract of loan, qard. Loan or qard is in an item that is common and well defined and standardized, like dollar, or like kilos of wheat of certain quality that is described. So these are standardized in that way. So you can give a loan a number of kilos of specific described wheat or rice or any other grain, and then will be paid back. So here you need another will, the will of the borrower here, to return it back. When you give an asset like your car, lend your car to your friend for a couple of days, the friend is required to return the car to you after the 2 days. So you need his will, that in a sense of like a subordinate will, not to make the contract. The contract is complete without his will, but only his will is to return really the car after 2 days. So components of waqf, for instance, or of in waqf, you need only waqif, you don't need another will. And waqf is a kind of foundation, creating a foundation or a permanent trust. You need a founder who is called waqif. You need object, what is the thing that you are making into a waqf, and of course statement of waqf. And there is a need for objective. What is it for? What the revenue of it is going to be used for, or even the asset itself is going to be used for. Like you build a mosque, for instance, and you say this is a mosque, And many private people build a mosque and declare it as a waqf mosque for people to pray in. So any person, any passerby can go in and pray in it. And the objective of it is obvious, to be used as a place of worship, as a mosque, and cannot be used for any other objective. So these are the different components of the different contract. Finance contract, of course, we discussed finance before. It's definitely not provision of credit or cash. It is provision of goods, services, and or credit or cash means of payment, including cash, while the counterpart comes at a later date or without counterpart at all. Counterpart comes at a later date when it is the price, say, of the goods is paid 3 months later, or on installment or in any way, but definitely later than the delivery of that item, or contributory contracts. All of them are finance contract, but do not fall under the banking system normally. This is a more realistic, we know, we discussed that before, more realistic definition of finance than what is called, because it is only called from, is defined, only finance is defined from the banking system point of view, not really from the reality of what is finance and what it is not. Okay. Finance contract and its effect definition. An Islamic finance contract is a Sharia compliant interpersonal constructed relationship which confers goods, services, and or of course credit or money, or it confer the management of such things against deferred payment or against settlement that will happen in the future settlement or deferred settlement. So we manage here to cover all kinds of Islamic finance contract, whether it is based on sale or leasing or on sharing. The effect, of course, it transfers ownership, or it may transfer management, and then it may create a debt, or it may require future settlement. In sharing, future settlement and management, and in sale and in lease, it transfers ownership and creates a debt. And we will discuss this in detail in sale and in leasing. Compliance with Sharia. What are the requirements for an Islamic finance contract in Sharia? And we will discuss also the categories of finance contract. As I mentioned earlier, our session really is heavily definitional, because all these definitions are taken really from the Islamic law, which is normally we call it Sharia, although Sharia covers a little bit more than the law, covers areas that are not covered by laws. So we'll take first the general conditions of Islamic finance contract. Okay, we have 5 conditions in Islamic finance contract. Consent, and of course consent requires aptitude. Who is going to give consent, and what are conditions in the person who is giving the consent, and of course representation to assure that the consent giver is authorized to make that consent in the context of this kind of contract. Balance, this is an important condition, and that doesn't exist in laws. Consent, aptitude, and representation exist in all laws. not only in Sharia. Balance is unique in Sharia. Moral commitment and moral screen. This is, again, it's unique in Sharia, but also I should say that many laws prevent contracting on things that they consider them non-permissible by law. Although the criteria is different, but the general moral criteria are humanistic more than anything else. So even though the law may allow the sale of liquor, but when you say moral, they tell you, okay, sin investment include liquors. So you shouldn't invest in liquor because it is one of the sin forms of investment. So this is why we put here moral. Moral is really humanistic, although we are going to take it literally from our Sharia. The fourth condition is a Sharia permissibility. This is my own really presentation. I distinguish Sharia permissibility from moral screen and moral requirement because the moral issue is more humanistic, as I mentioned. Whereas we have one situation, one thing only, and I don't know of any other thing in all my past study, research, everything, that is the prohibition of eating and, of course, selling, buying, financing, anything from the pig products. Well, it's not really, it's only when it is for eating. Eating any part from the pig is not permissible in Sharia, but this is not a humanistic issue confirmed scientifically. The principle in all morality is all things that hurt you or hurt others or even hurt the environment are or the society are not acceptable morally. But eating pork or eating any product from the pig, there's no confirmed scientific knowledge about it yet. So we can't, I separated it separately here because definitely in Islamic finance, we take it for granted that the Quran prohibits eating pork. The financing pork for anything that relates to eating in the final analysis is not permissible. So we have this Sharia permissibility specifically applies to the issue of eating pork only. And notice that the Quran, this is by the way, distinguishes, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam distinguish between items in prohibition. There are different strength of that prohibition. For instance, in pork, the only mention is eating pork. But how about using pork heart plug for replacement of human plug, heart plug in surgery to save human beings? There is some kind of pig that is raised especially, and it is raised in Southeast Asia, especially for taking the heart plug that is used for replacing a human heart plug. And I know people who made that operation and got that replacement. There is another way also of replacement, which is replacing it by a metallic valve. So the metallic valve is kind of different, and of course the cost and other issues may differ, and also the usability, the permanency of that again may differ. And it is said, to my knowledge, that the pig valve is better than the copper valve for human heart. So anyway, so but what is prohibited in pig is eating. What is prohibited in liquor, for instance, 10 items. The Prophet ﷺ said in a correct, authentic hadith that 10 functions are prohibited in liquor. Brewing it is prohibited, handling it is prohibited, offering it is prohibited, transporting it is prohibited. And he counted these 10 items, or 10 functions rather. Whereas in riba, for instance, in interest, 4 things are prohibited, and that is clearly said by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also, that taking interest, giving interest, writing the contract of interest, and being a witness of the contract of interest. And in one version of this hadith, there is a sentence added by the person that the hadith also said in one of its narration, that they are all equal in the matter of sinfulness. In other words, here we have only 4. This is why, for instance, sitting with a person whom you know deals with interest is not haram. Whereas sitting on a drinking table that is assigned as drinking table might be problematic, really. The last condition here is realism. Realism applies to both the object of the contract and the conditions in the contract. For instance, you cannot sell or finance a piece of a rock from the moon, because you don't have accessibility to that. You and me don't have accessibility. But for instance, can NASA sell a piece of a rock from the moon? Yes, NASA can do that because it has accessibility to it. It can get it from the moon, and it has already taken rocks from the moon, and you find them in many museums all over the world. So this realism may be relative in that sense, but again, from Sharia point of view, all contracts that do not have any real substance, real contribution, all items, sorry, that don't have real substance, real contribution to being asset that creates additional value, such as options, for instance, are not acceptable. They violate the principle of realism. And many other similar contracts also, although not yet, the OIC Fiqh Academy did not yet make a resolution on Bitcoin and its likes, but in several groups of Sharia scholars, I was involved in one of them, and we determined that the kind of virtual money that is like Bitcoin is not permissible, whereas there is another kind for which there is physically funds deposited with a depositee, a banker or a broker, and based on that, this virtual like virtual dollars or virtual British pounds are issued But for each issued virtual dollar, there is a dollar that is deposit with the depositee. This is the fatwa on this kind of virtual currency is different. Is cannot be claimed that it is absolutely haram like the others. Anyway, these are the general conditions. We'll talk about some of them quickly. Okay, aptitude is a description of the consent giver, which qualifies his or her or him or her to make a contract or to give consent. The lack of aptitude is either persons under age or persons with mental disability, insane. Circumstantial cases may be also which make loss of aptitude, like a person under debt and a court order was issued to limit his disposition of his properties or some of his properties to protect the creditors, or a person on the deathbed may not be accepted or permitted because of that to make either a last will or giving gift to others, because it may mean that he mean to prevent his legal heirs from getting the wealth, because he's dying and he's doing that just to prevent them, to avoid the application of the law, in other words. And there is a rule, in fact, it exists in all over the world, that if you take an illegal action in order to avoid a legal obligation, the legal obligation applies to you, and the legal action that you have taken for avoiding it for that purpose is considered void. Anyway, the consent and aptitude, again, with it, we have the representation that you really own. You have to, before you sell, for instance, a real estate property in Sharia and in all laws also, that before you sell a real estate property, you have to prove that you are the owner of this real estate property. That is the meaning of representation, that, okay, I am the owner. I am the manager who is authorized to act on behalf of the company or the corporation in this kind of contract. So this is the representation applies on natural persons in the form of you really are authorized to take action on that object that you are taking action on. Like proving you are the owner, and an owner is authorized, or you are an agent and with an authority to make action on that object which is owned by your principal, not by you. And the same thing when you represent a corporation or a company or a partnership, you need that evidence that you are authorized to take that kind of action. So this is representation. Balance is important and is unique really to Sharia, and it is required in Sharia. If there is any condition in a contract that breaks the balance, it's either the contract is void, void completely, or at least the condition may be void. For instance, an interest-based loan contract is completely void. All of it is void, because the objective of giving the money is to earn interest, and interest is an addition, a condition in a contract that breaks the balance of the contract. By what virtue? Your property is a debt. When you give a loan, your property becomes a debt, and the debt does not generate any baby debt, does not increase. So there's no reason. The interest condition is an imbalanced condition in the contract, but since it is fundamental in the loan contract, the loan, all of it is void. The contract itself is considered void and nil. That is not permitted completely. But there are other situations, like, for instance, sale contract. I sell you my watch, but I put a condition that provided you don't sell it to Ahmed or you don't sell it to Fatima. I have no right to put this condition, because when I sell you my watch becomes owned by you, and I have no right to restrict your freedom of doing whatever you like with your own property. So this condition is an imbalanced condition, but the idea here, I sold you my wife, and I meant really to transfer the ownership of my wife, my watch. I'm talking, not I said wife, is watch. Okay, I sell my watch, and I intend to make you the owner of it. So the contract need not to be itself void, rather we void the condition. So you buy it, and you can go ahead and sell it next day to Ahmed or to Fatima or to whoever you like to sell it to. That condition here is void then, because it creates imbalance. Similarly, if you remember, we mentioned earlier something like that, like the condition of closing the gap in leasing contract that exists in the United States, car leasing, United States and Canada, that the lessee, if an accident happened in the early period of that lease contract, where the insurance company wouldn't give the amount of the balance that remains on the lessee, you have to continue paying lease rent until you close that gap. That condition, from Sharia point of view, is void. The condition is void because you are paying, the rent is only the price of the usability. And if the car is totaled completely, then how come you are required to pay rent? There's no usability, and you are not the one who made that intentionally. It happened for any other reason. So you shouldn't be responsible for paying rent and then closing this gap that is claimed in lease contract in US and Canada. Although I saw in Canada some lease contract that don't have, car lease contract that don't have this clause by some car, by some car sale and lease companies. So the lack of balance will either result in voiding the contract or voiding the condition alone. Okay, again, imbalance applies only to two-will contract. Oh yeah, this is an important point. In exchange contract, of course, balance applies, whereas in one-will contract, balance is not there, because it is already financially a complete loss on one party, on the giver, and a complete gain on the recipient, on the other party. So it is really, there's no sense to talk about the condition of balance in one-will contract. Only in two-will contract, the condition of balance applies. And by the way, it also applies in marriage. And if in marriage, we find a condition that has no counterpart, why this condition is put, for instance, like after marriage you cannot travel to any other country or to X country. Well, you decided to travel with to that X country, the condition may be void. Although this is kind of in marriage, this is يعني disputable. It's not common among all Muslim scholars that the all extra conditions in marriage are void and null. Some of them may definitely be accepted, and some of them may not be accepted. Maybe void, yes. So depend on the kind of condition. But lack of balance is very specific really to our Sharia and doesn't apply in other contracts. Okay, the moral commitment is, as I mentioned, is a humanistic, and it applies to both the object of the contract and the methodology of contracting, and also of implementing it, what is called usually the modus operandi of the contract. So that it applies to both. Both must be morally permitted and acceptable. Sharia permissibility, I discussed it already. It applies practically only to the issue of eating pig or financing pig, pig or pig product or anything for the objective of eating them. By the way, yani, once I was asked a question by a Muslim farmer in UK. He said it cost me some handsome amount of money to clean my farm before the season, before I need to plow it and make a new planting in it. And he had a neighbor, and he said his neighbor had a small herd of pigs that he opened the gate for them and have them run for 2 weeks in his farm, and they clean everything. They eat everything in it. Then he can plow it after that. They even eat yani, anything that they may throw in the on the land. They eat that even. So they make it, I mean, quite clean. So he can plow it and prepare it for the planting. He said, my neighbor offered me to send me his pigs for 2 weeks also in my land to do the same. And that doesn't cost me anything, and I don't even feed them because they eat these things that are there on the surface of the land. In fact, my fatwa was it is permissible. It's not haram to clean your land in this way and prepare it and save your money. He said it was a handsome amount of money that I used to get people to come and clean it and do all that. So that was an interesting kind of fatwa. Yani I don't know whether other Sharia ulama will agree with me or not, but my evidence is that what is prohibited repeatedly in the Quran and in the Sunnah is the eating of it. Even there is it is disputed whether you can use the skin of a pig after it is skinned and tanned. You can use it on the floor or anything. It's not, yani, this is disputed. Some classical ulama, historically, some of them say it's permissible and some of them say it is not permissible. So anyway, this is the Sharia permissibility applies only to that thing, to pig, issue pig for eating and nothing else. Realism and virtual assets, we discussed it. So that is, notice that part of realism is accessibility also. In the example of NASA can sell a rock from the moon, whereas I and you cannot sell a rock from the moon. Okay. categories of Islamic finance contract. We have let's look at these categories, and we look at them from two angles, two perspectives, either the nature of the contract or the characteristics of the contract. And this is really interesting, Yani, to look at it from the point of view of the nature of the contract. We can distinguish between four kinds of contract. One is exchange contract, sharing contract, contributory contract, and cooperative contract. Now, cooperative contract does not exist. This category does not exist in the classical fiqh, classical writings. But it is being argued by contemporary scholars, and I argue this. I am one of those who insist on having it as a separate category, because we have certain contract that has certain characteristics of contribution, but also has certain characteristics of exchange. For instance, the contract of buffet contract. You go to a restaurant for breakfast, and at breakfast they offer buffet. And buffet is for a fixed price. You pay, for instance, $25, and you eat as much as you want, and from any kind that is offered. They offer several kinds, and you eat any quantity and from any kind. This is a contract that is based on kind of being easy. Take it easy. Don't be specific. It's okay. I forgive you if you take more or you take less, and you forgive me if you take less. If you didn't eat really for the worth of 25, you forgive me, and I forgive you if you ate for a lot more than the $25 that you paid. This kind of contract, some people who are, I call them bookish, some Sharia scholars who are bookish said this is haram. Buffet contract is haram. And we have, similar to buffet, we have the insurance cooperative contract. You make a cooperative, an association together, and we pay fees, a certain amount, and anyone who is exposed to a risk, we compensate him or her. Now, the amount we compensate, we don't know how much is it. So this kind of contract, again, you will find the bookish Sharia scholars not accepting this contract. Also here in Turkey, we have, in fact, there are a couple of similar baths in America. Also, I remember in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there is a Turkish bath. But here in Istanbul, there are many Turkish baths. You pay one fee when you enter, and you may stay for either 20 minutes or you may stay for 3 hours. And you may use quantity of water, X, small or big. It is based on forgiveness. It doesn't matter if you use more or less. If you stay more or less, doesn't matter. But these contracts have characteristics of contribution and characteristics of exchange, but they are not exchange, and they are not really contributory. Classically, many Sharia scholars in the classical books considered a marriage contract as an exchange contract. But really, marriage contract is not exchange contract. I put it under cooperative contract because the Quran repeatedly said that the relationship between husband and wife is based on al-ihsan wal-ma'ruf. it is not based really on the exchange. It is based on ihsan and ma'ruf, yani what is good, what is known as good among people, and on forgiveness, on being kind to the other. So this kindness, forgiveness, what is good, good practice, good things, these are definitely part of the marriage contract. So I sort marriage contract among these contract, this category. So this category, there are many other, some other writers also who share with me. In fact, there is a writer who wrote an article on this matter and published in one of the journals, professional journals in Arabic, though. A Moroccan, happened to be Moroccan. What's his name? I know the person. Al-Blaji, something Al-Blaji. I forgot his first name, but I know him personally, and I met him more than once. He wrote an article that we really have to establish this fourth category, because there are several contracts by their nature. They are good contracts and shouldn't be. They are not really exchange nor contributory. They are in between, having characteristics from here and there. So if we look according to the nature of the contract, we take all this picture here, and let's take it quickly. Cooperative contract, marriage contract, insurance contract, some services like buffet, restaurant, and so on. And there may be many others. You go into a sport club. You may go every day, or you may go once a week, or once a month, or whatever. Sport club, you pay one fee and take all these services. So these can be also among the cooperative contract. Exchange contract, sale and lease. Sale finance is an exchange contract, and also lease finance. Sale will come to it in detail, and also lease in detail. But sharing contract, you may share the revenue, as in muzara'a. Muzara'a is a contract between a farmer and a landlord. Give the land to the farmer. The farmer plant and take care of everything, and then they share the total product. They don't share the net profit. So here they share total product in muzara'a, and similar to muzara'a, a form related also to the land and land development in agriculture. Musaqa, another contract, and mugharasa, another contract. They are similar to muzara'a, but with some specific conditions for trees, or for a land that was not reclaimed before that. Need to be reclaimed and then do other things with it. You may share profit, and here in mudaraba and in musharaka, you share profit. You don't share the total output, total revenue. In muzara'a, you share total revenue, and in musharaka and in mudaraba, you share net profit. We will come to study their characteristic. Contributory contract, again, there are two main broad contracts, one with repayment, and these are ariya and loan. Qard or loan, and ariya, which I didn't find the word. Ariya applies to items that are returned themselves as they are. When it is without repayment, we have gift, charity, wasiya, and waqf. So this chart is an interesting chart, really need to be understood. You don't need to memorize it, but understand it clearly. Notice we did not talk about the characteristics of the contract, only now from the point of view of the nature of the contract. Exchange contract, exchange financing contract, that is give and take, like forward sale, like بيع السلم, like بيع الاستصناع, and إجارة, also an exchange contract, because you sell the usufruct. So one party becomes owner of the price and the other party becomes owner of the item that is sold. Sharing contract means putting resources together. Resources can be money, real physical assets, intangible properties, like, for instance, expertise, and the human resources also could be part of it. Once these resources are mixed, we share their ownership together. And we also share the revenue or profit, depend on what is the contract, positive or negative, which comes as a result of putting these mixed resources into productive action. Example of it, of course, mudaraba, musharaka, and muzara. Contributory contract are the contract that require a complete loss on one part and a complete gain on the other part. Contributory contract can be subcategorized into subcategories, since a contribution may be with the condition of return, as in aria, lending assets such as a car, or it may be without a condition of return, such as a gift or donation or payment of zakah, for instance. I want to mention here, although we will come to study it in detail, but I gave example here, aria, and not loan, because in loan, you don't return the same. Loan applies to items that have two characteristics: standardized and being used, disposed of. When you don't dispose of it, you use the car and the car will remain as it is for 2 days. Short period, and even the capital consumption of it may be very small, and you really gave away the owner of the car gave it away to your friend. You are not going to charge him for the capital amortization of the car for these 2 days, because you gave it to him on the basis of good friendship, good relations, يعني just as a sign of goodness, of benevolence in reality. And the car remains at your owner or at your ownership while it is in his hand. He has the usability of it. It's very similar to renting the car, except that it is given free. And being free means there is no compensation for it. But yet he has to return the car after its use. And by the way, يعني, here, if the car is hurt by no mistake or no fault on your part, who bears the result of that? Say, got a dent. The normal thing, of course, the owner, because it remains his car, and you did not do anything. You did not make any fault in it. If it was because of your fault, you will be responsible to it. But when it is not as a result of your fault, you are not responsible to it. It remains his. And similar thing when it is rented, even in renting a car, if the car is a peril happened to the car for any reason, as long as you are not responsible for that, it remains on the responsibility of the owner. And the owner usually has his own insurance for it. So I did not mention the the qard here, although the qard requires returning, but not what you got. What you got is already, you disposed of it, you used it for your objective from the qard, whatever it is. So you give a replacement of it, a substitute, something similar. That's why we need the condition of standardization. In qard applies to things that are standardized and at the same time disposed of. The objective of getting them is to dispose of them. You borrow money to buy Apple, for instance, or to buy a computer, or to buy a machine. Okay, categories from the point of view, sorry. Okay, categories from the point of view of characteristics. We have two categories. One is called contract involving amana, and the other is contract involving musawama. Musawama contract, or contract involving amana. Musawama in Arabic means negotiation. And here we need to have a little idea, and please, I need your attention for it. There is a rule that is really behind all laws. Why we don't allow a minor, for instance, a child, to make a contract? Because of the assumption that the child may not know, or an insane person, both of them may not know really what are their own benefits. You may give a very young child, say 2 years, 3 years old, may give him a piece of chocolate, and he may give you, say, a coin which is really a golden coin. And for him, he wouldn't appreciate the difference between them and know that this is maybe 100 or 2,000 times value of what you gave him. So we don't allow people who do not have aptitude for contracting, because of this point that they may not know their own interest completely. This is a point where exchange contract, all exchange contract, or whenever a contract has any kind of negotiation, any negotiation, musawama, any negotiation in a contract implies that each party knows his own benefits and defends his own benefits and maximizes his own benefits. In a contributory contract, I want to give a gift because I like that person. I know it is a complete loss to me financially and a complete gain to the other guy, but I do it as a good relation with that person. I have completely two different objectives. In exchange contract, I negotiate conditions of it because I want to maximize my benefit. In other words, the maximization issue is not an issue that is alien to the Islamic economics and finance. The maximization concept is part really of all exchange contract. All exchange contract is based on maximization. Each party maximizes. And whenever there is negotiation, there is maximization. And that applies, sorry to say it, even because in Sharika, there is a negotiation. How much you take? You take 50, you pay 50 of the principal and I pay 50, but because you manage, you ask to take 60% of the profit. I may argue with you, why 60? Well, let's give you 55 or 58, or you insist on 65, whatever. So the idea here, we negotiate to defend our interest and maximize our benefits. So the issue of maximization, benefit maximization, utility maximization is not an issue that is alien to Islamic finance and Islamic fiqh and Islamic law and Islamic economics. This idea, يعني, you find in the classical books of fiqh, the books that are written some at least 1,000 years ago, or 1,200 or 1,300 even. There are books written at the time of before the year 200 of Hijrah, and we are now in the year 1474. So we are talking about more than 1,200 years. So these books, what? More than 1,200 years ago. In them, you will find the concept of utility maximization. They call it here, the word that they are using in it, الشح. Some of you who know Arabic, you know that the word shuh is mentioned in the Quran more than once. That means that you are keenness to get benefit, keenness to maximize your own benefit. So they say in these ancient books continuously until today that exchange contract are based on a shuh. That is, each party want to get as much as he can out of this contract. That is the meaning of negotiation. Why do you negotiate? To get more. And we will notice that each contract that has two parties has some kind of negotiation, including marriage. Definitely, marriage has some kind of negotiation, and that means each party will maximize its or aim from the negotiation to maximize its utility. Why in marriage we accept to marry this person and don't marry that other person? For instance, when a person asks for my daughter or my sister or anything that for marriage, why we accept X and don't accept Y? Of course, because we check on that person, and the same way again the man would check also on the girl and check and see whether they can maximize their benefit of their life together. When they find that situation is suitable for that, they accept marriage. And that happens all the time in any negotiation, and we always recommend really for marriage in US and Canada that you should sign together a pre-marriage contract that preserve the rights of each one. And especially there are many Sharia issues here that applies, for instance, in the issue of whose responsibility to spend on the family, and whose responsibility to take care, for instance, of in case of dispute, take care of the children at the lower age or at a middle age or at an older age. At all these, there are conditions that Sharia require in all these. And of course, in case of death, the distribution of the estate of each one of them, how is it distributed? This is an important issue. So all these, we always recommend that for marriage, you should make a prenuptial condition, pre-marriage condition, contract, sorry. And by the way, there is a template contract on my website that we prepared, and with consultation of many other leaders, of Muslim leaders in America and Canada, in North America, I should say. And Based on that, I prepared this pre-marriage contract, pre-nuptial contract, and it's available. Of course, you can amend in it, you can improve on it, but you can take it as like a basic template for marriage, and many people use that, and it is available really for everybody. Okay, so here we have contracts that are based on amana and contracts that are based on musawama. But from this point, I'm going to tell you, even the contracts that are based on amana, they have certain elements of musawama, of negotiation. And we will notice that as we go in the coming slides. Okay, from the point of view of characteristics, either musawama or amana. Amana is also two kinds. A kind we call it amana contract, and another kind we call it amana hand contract. Amana hand, not amana contract. Amana hand contract applies whenever a property of someone is in the hand of another person. Ijara, for instance, Ijara contract makes the property of the lessor in the hand of the lessee. So Ijara contract is an amana hand contract. Wakala contract. Wakala could be wakala to take action on a property or to take action in court, for instance. Defend me in court. Wakala contract, again, I give you some of my secret to defend me in court, and you or I authorize you to take action on a property of mine. So both, this is an amana hand contract. You are having authority or some of the personal information that I gave you is amana with you in your hand, and you are required to handle them on that basis. And we will look at the characteristics of each of these in a moment. Contracts involving amana. The word amana, by the way, the word amana exists in at least 12 or 14 or 16 languages in the world. I made a study once and I found it existing, the same word, and in these same two meanings, either honesty or trust. In Turkish language, in Hausa language, in Persian language, in Urdu language, in Hindi language, although Hindi is all India, the language of all India now. In Malaysian language, in African languages, Hausa and several other languages in Africa. The word amana in Sri Lanka language, whatever their language is, they have also the word amana. Although the writing of it sometimes may be different, in some of these languages it is written amanath with th at the end when you write it in Latin words, in Latin script. They call it amanath, th instead of h only. So the word amana means either honest or trust. Honest in finance, we mean in it honest disclosure. And here where we come to the word murabaha. Murabaha is a contract that is based on honest disclosure. Tell me how much your cost, and let's sit and negotiate. Notice how much profit I'll give you above it. Would 10% be enough, or 7%, or 12%, or whatever? We negotiate that part. How much I give you above it, but provided you tell me honestly what is your cost. That's the concept of murabaha. And wakala is also an honest contract, because the wakil has to be completely 100% honest in dealing with his principle. In all action, he must take all actions on behalf of principle with full honest disclosure. I sold this for you. You gave me a wakala to sell it for you. I sold it for 12. I cannot say I sold it for 11. I sold it for 12, so I have to give you full disclosure. Whatever the action I did for your benefit, as authorized by you. You gave me personal information, I defended you in court, and I said XYZ or blah, blah, blah. So this wakala is an honest contract, but notice it is also a trust contract. So it is at the same time amana contract and amana hand contract. Whereas murabaha, only amana contract, not amana hand. Because the moment you sell, you hand over the property to the buyer, and it becomes his and under his liability and under his authority. So the moment you hand it to him, خلاص يعني you are out of it. It's no more your property. It is not amana hand. It's only amana contract. That is when you sell on murabaha. So murabaha has an element of honest disclosure. How much is your cost for this item? And we negotiate the increment I give above it. There was an interesting really issue happened in one of the Islamic banks, actually in Al-Rajihi Islamic Bank in Saudi Arabia. Al-Rajihi was at that time, that was in the mid-90s, because it was established anyway in 1989. But in the mid-90s, Rajihi was a big bank. At that time was the third largest bank in Saudi Arabia, and it has many branches. Each month they give murabaha financing for cars, many cars, yani in hundreds in each month. So Rajihi, when they noticed, the management over Rajihi, that we are giving that much murabaha financing for cars, they negotiated with the car dealers that, and they asked them to give them what they call quantity discount. I am buying from you 100 car or 200 car in a month, so I need quantity discount. And they accepted. Car dealers gave them quantity discount. Otherwise, when you go, how murabaha is done, you go to the car dealer, select the car you want, you negotiate the price with it, and he'll give you the lowest price that he can give it to an individual buyer. So he'll give you the price. You take that formula, go to the bank and tell them, okay, this is the car I want, and this is the price that the seller wants, and please buy this car and I'll buy it from you. You negotiate with the bank at 7% or 6% or 20%, or you negotiate also the date of payment on installment or one time after a year or whatever the way, over 5 years or 3 years or 7 years, whatever it is. So these are negotiable conditions. Okay, so but of course you don't know. Behind your back, Al-Rajhi was able to take 5 or 6% quantity discount that is paid to Rajhi at the end of every month. Now, the Sharia board of Rajhi was asked that question. One of the some employee who wanted to make something against the management, he informed the Sharia board that we are making a commission, quantity commission. Is it permissible or not? Sharia board determined that, well, it is permissible to take quantity commission, but you have to take all this amount to the customer himself, because murabaha is an honest disclosure contract. So the Rajhi really started giving, and they gave all these customers for the last 4 or 5 years, until the time of the fatwa. They gave them completely the commissions, the quantity commissions they got from the car dealers, return them. And not only that, in fact, the opinion came from the Sharia board over Rajhi at that time. You have to give them, and also give them credit for all the profit, because you charged your 6-7% profit. You charged it on the total price. You should have charged it on the price minus this commission, not the 100,000, but on 94,000, for instance. And they did that, and they returned all this commission to their customers. So that is the implication of honest disclosure in murabah. Similar disclosure, of course, honest in wakala. Now, contract implying trust, and I have to go for prayer in maybe 5 minutes, inshallah. Contract implying trust, amana hand. The rule is, whenever a property or even privacy, when I expose my privacy to my lawyer, of course, that remains with him, with the whole amana hand. He has no right to disclose any part of it to anybody except what is needed for the court. So amana hand is, ijara, for instance, is an amana hand contract, because the property that you drive, the car you drive, or the house you live in, is owned by the other party, and it is given to you to extract the usufruct. Another example, for instance, this computer I am talking to you from is owned by the university, and the university gave it to me to use it for my personal and my teaching activities. And I use it because I have only one computer, and I told them I have to use like everybody else, and this is the rule in all universities, in fact, that you cannot really move from one a computer to another in doing your things in your life. So you use the same computer for my personal things, including my bank account and other things, and for my personal activities, when I send a letter to a friend, for instance, or an email, or I reserve for a trip, a vacation trip to anywhere, or all this, I use my same computer, and that is well understood and well known. So, but the computer, I cannot, for instance, take a hammer and break the keyboard of it. And if I do that, I will be responsible for that. But as long as I use it in the normal use, I am not responsible for any damage that it may happen to it. For instance, if we have some dripping from the roof, and it came on the computer and hurt the computer because of that, the drains that came from the roof, I am not responsible, because normally there's no drain, and I put my computer in the appropriate place. As a matter of fact, I have one laptop, I use it at home, and I have one laptop, I use it and in the office. Both of them are owned by the university, and I am authorized to use them as part of my work, and I use them for both my personal things and my teaching issues and relations in the university, and this is fine. But what is the meaning of being amana hand? I am not responsible for anything that I don't do out of negligence. Remember this point, negligence. If I put it in the wrong place, I put it under in a place that has drain anyway. and then it is hurt, that is my mistake, negligence, or violation of contract. Violation. The contract between me and the university is to use it for personal things and the like. If I use it for anything that is abusive, like for instance, making any illicit activity on it, that is definitely I will be, and then I am blocked from certain website or anything. That is an abuse of it, violation of the contract. So either any damage I make intentionally, or out of negligence, or violation of contract. So these three things, action that is in wrong action, I do any damage, or damage caused by negligence, intentional damage, negligence, or violation of contract, then I will be responsible for that. Otherwise, I will not be responsible, and the university repaired it, and they repair even things that come. Sometimes we have these hackers or whatever, the university repair it, and this is why the university will have always a department to take care of that. So the amana hand, whenever a property is in the hand of another person, then the concept of amana hand applies. Okay. Contracts involving amana. And let's see the amana hand. Sharing contract, is it an amana hand also? Of course, because when we share, we put our resources together, we appoint manager, and the manager act on the basis of being his hand is amana hand on the property of the other partners. For himself, his own property, if it is identified, suppose that he contribute the building. The building is, he take action on the building because it is his own property. But once we mix our properties together, in fact, we become all sharer in all these properties. So I would be even sharer in that. Once the sharing contract is concluded, I put money, and the other partner put a building, a third partner put cars, and another partner put raw materials. All of us become owner in all of these in proportion to our percentage in the principal, and whoever is the manager is his hand on these properties will be an amana hand. In employment, the same way. In ijara, the same way. Employment and ijara is the same, because employment is a form of ijara. Wakala also. We have wadi'a, and notice here, wadi'a is not translated here as deposit. Deposit in a bank is called in Arabic also wadi'a, but really the concept is different. Wadi'a in Sharia is when I give you a property to keep it with you for safekeeping. Safekeeping with you, that is a wadi'a with you. I'm going on a or a lady is going on a travel and has some jewelry. So she put it with her neighbor. That is wadi'a in Sharia. Her neighbor is required then, if she accept to take this wadi'a, to keep it in a safe place, normal safe place, like if it were it's her own. If it is her own jewelry, where does she keep it? In a closet or in a certain place. So she put it in a similar place. If she put it in a similar place, then a thief broke in the house and took that, then she is not responsible. But if she put it on the staircase outside her door, then definitely that is negligence. That's not an appropriate place to put jewelry. And if it is gone, someone took it and didn't know who did that, then she would be responsible, because that is negligence. That is the wadi'a in Sharia. Lien is similar to wadi'a, but lien is made against a debt that is payable in the future. سخني لي يا هي، ما حقدر اشربها هلا بعد الصلاة. يلا. Okay, so lien is also a form of wadi'a, but it is done against to secure or protect a debt that is going to be paid in the future. We need to make a break, really. Musawama contract, all amana contract have some element of musawama, also some element of negotiation. Whether amana hand or amana contract, honest disclosure contract, all of them have certain musawama element, but basic musawama element are sale, and we are talking especially about credit sale on credit, salam, which is a form of sale on credit for future delivery and immediate payment, and istisna for creating a thing with specific qualifications or specific conditions, and of course delivery will be done in the future, and also payment may be done in the future or in advance. Lease, employment, although they are amana hand, but at the same time they are also negotiation. Sharing also, we negotiate in sharing also, because we have in cooperative contract, we also negotiate in cooperative contract. So there is an element of negotiation, but at the same time, practically all contracts except contribute, all other contracts have some element of negotiation. I think we stop here because I need to make my Maghrib prayer. So I'm going to close both the view, the camera, and the voice. Assalamu alaikum. Are we back together?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay. Before we continue, please allow me, we need to discuss next week and during Ramadan. We have 4 Sundays in Ramadan. And the first one will be for us here on the second day of Ramadan. Ramadan will begin on Saturday, and then we have Sunday. So next week will be Ramadan. Now, Maghrib for us here is about 7. And definitely I need some time before Maghrib. And there will be Asr prayer. Asr prayer is after 4:20 or 4:25, and it may move even to 4:30. My suggestion is to make our meeting in Ramadan at 3:30 to 5:30, and we may, if we have to extend it for another 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, it will be maximum up to 6. 3:30 will be for you, I suppose, 7:30 a.m. now, and maybe in the middle of Ramadan you have change of a clock, you have summertime.
Yes, I think it's gonna be done the second week or the third week of Ramadan. We're gonna have I'm not sure.
So the difference will be 7 hours even. So it will be even earlier. But anyway, in Ramadan, might be for you not a bad idea that we can make it even after Fajr prayer, after Suhoor. Of course, some may not be fasting in these days, but we have to manage it one way. Alternatively, we can stop in Ramadan completely and resume after Ramadan.
Okay, I can check the hours after the class, inshallah, and I'll let you know, and we can discuss this better, inshallah.
So discuss it between you and let me know.
Okay.
3:30 will be fine for me. We meet at 3:30, same day on Sunday, or we stop completely in Ramadan and go back. Although the second week of Ramadan, I may not be able to give the class at all because I am traveling to Damascus after 50 years absence, and Sunday is my travel day.
No
So
worries, inshallah, that's fine.
I may not be yet in any place that is settled. So second Sunday, we will be off anyway. So we have really only 3 Sundays in Ramadan, but the first one is next week. Discuss it between you. Either we keep them at 3:30 or we go on until after Ramadan. We make it like our break. Okay?
Inshallah, I'll let you know, inshallah.
That's fine. Okay, return in Islamic finance, that you guys know it by now. We have it, we repeated it more than once, that these are the conditions. The basic fundamental condition is property-based. There ought to be ownership of a property. Then that property, the moral screening both of the contract and the property, and the asset must be of the kind that can generate added value. And of course, there must be actually additional value. You buy a commodity and you sell it at a higher price, deferred and higher price. So this, we discussed them before, and but this thing we did not discuss it before. So it is interesting because some people may think and there are, in fact, people who wrote that kind of thing, that prefixing the profit is haram. No, prefixing the profit is not haram. In Murabaha, the idea of it is to prefix the profit at the time of the contract. And also in rent, if you don't prefix the rent, it is haram, in fact, not to prefix it. Rent must be determined at the time of the rental contract. And the profit must be known at and determined at the time of the sale contract. So you buy it for 10, you sell it for 12, and that is the additional 2 is your profit, and it is determined at the time of the contract, because profit is in fact part of the sale price. So this idea of prefixing, because in interest there is prefixing, so they say, well, would it be like that? That's not acceptable, really. But there were people who wrote that, and especially in America, I have come across people and across leaders of community who said these kind of ideas. Another one, the profit being percentage of the principal, of the capital. Yes, it can be. In rent, what is wrong if I buy a thing for X amount of dollar, and I tell you, okay, I rent you this for 7% or 10% or 12% of its price. What is wrong in that? Because interest rate is always considered as a percentage. They say, oh, being a percentage of capital, that makes it haram. Again, there are people who say that, and that is absolutely baseless in Sharia. So profit or return can be percentage of capital. Profit or return can be prefixed, or must be sometimes prefixed at the time of the contract. In sharing, you cannot prefix it, of course. That's sharing, because it's not there yet. And we said that one of the conditions is there must be an additional value created in the previous slide. When you create a company and you start selling your product, you don't know yet what is your profit. That's obvious. Then in sharing, in mudaraba or in musharaka, you don't prefix the profit. But in ijara and in sale, you do prefix the profit, and it is okay to be a percentage of it is okay to be a percentage of the capital. A third point, there are many international contracts that determine the profit in murabaha or the rent in ijara on the basis of LIBOR. LIBOR is London Interbank Official Rate. In America, there is the prime rate, the equivalent of the LIBOR. They call it prime rate. So they say, okay, the rent will be determined for the first year at, say, 7%. But for the following year, we take what is the LIBOR on the 31st of December, plus 1 point, for instance. So LIBOR on 21st of December for the second year was 4% plus 1, then the rent will be 5%. Is there anything haram in that? No. It is okay, although LIBOR is interest. But if you take the rate of interest and say, okay, the profit is like the rate of interest, that's not, there's nothing haram in that, and it's incorrect. In fact, I go to the extent to give as an example. If I am a banker, an Islamic banker, and the customer comes to me, want to finance purchase of a car, and if he asks me, how much profit are you going to make on this purchase of a car, which is murabaha based, I would tell him, go to my next door neighbor, the interest-based bank, ask them what is the interest rate for financing cars, and I'll charge you the same rate as profit. That's permissible. So it's there's no sense really for these objections at all. Well, because it is similar to interest, it is haram. Uh, Again, there are people who say, and there are writings in that, it should not be debt financing. These writers who talk about debt financing do not distinguish between debt-based financing and debt-creating financing. Debt-based financing is haram because the increment is in a debt, and that is the definition of riba. It is definitely not acceptable. Yes, it is haram. But debt-creating financing, that's sale on credit, and of course it creates debt. Rent also creates debt. The rental amounts for future period, if they are predetermined, they are debt on the lessee. So they are considered debt. So rent or lease and sale both create debt. So those writers, when they say debt financing, they really do fail to distinguish between debt based. When you give a loan, then it is debt based, because from moment one it becomes a debt. And then any increment is increment in a debt, and it is riba. So debt creating is okay. That's sale on credit. Debt creating, rent creates debt. And again, there is another point. They say, oh, funding should be from halal sources. Now, in Canada, for instance, you have in Manitoba, Assiniboine Credit Union. Several years ago, there was a very good gentleman who was the imam of the mosque in Winnipeg there, and he negotiated with this bank, not bank, credit union, Assiniboine. He negotiated with them to offer Islamic finance contract for the Muslim communities who want to abide by their own religion. And in fact, I was involved in that. They invited me to propose to them a format of a contract. And I dealt with their lawyer for about 3 months. And we exchanged letters and so on, exchanged format until we reached the wording that is acceptable in Sharia and acceptable also in the Canadian law in Manitoba. And Assiniboine Credit Union started from that time, about definitely more than 8 years or 9 years, probably. Some maybe 10 years. I forgot when was it. They started offering Islamic finance contract for house purchase. And of course, they are using their own resources, and their own resources, they pay interest on them, on their deposit, or they take financing from other institutions again for interest and so on. They are interest-based organization, Assiniboine Credit Union, but they have this product which is for house purchase, an Islamic product that is 100% compliant with Sharia. Definitely that is better. In fact, it is better. We are making part of what otherwise would be used on interest basis, we are making it used on Sharia basis. So we are improving part of the life at least, and responding to the needs of Muslims in Manitoba. In other words, the claim that the sources of funds is very important. You cannot take sources based on interest and make offer with these funds Islamic product. The haram is not in the fund. The haram is in the process of giving a contract based on interest. For that reason, in fact, for instance, Citibank established Islamic Bank in Bahrain. There is a Citi Islamic Investment Bank in Bahrain, which is all owned by Citibank, and of course its money comes from its own activities, which are mostly interest-based. And is that haram? No. In fact, that is a reduction of the haram. If they diverted some of their resources to give Islamic finance contract, that's good, that's better. So that makes life better, not life worse. So these 5 points must be really clear in our minds. And there are many Muslims who think that these are should be. That's why they are called false characteristics. Some people think that they should be, but they really are not at all and are irrelevant. As a matter of fact, for those of you who have heard of the word AWOFI, AAOIFI, this is a voluntary non-profit organization that was created by Islamic banks, and its office is in Bahrain. And it issues standards for the sector, for the Islamic banks. One of these standards talk about sharika. And in that standard of sharika, which is a partnership, in that standard, they mentioned that it is irrelevant where the partner get his money from. So can you create a partnership and one of the partner is a seller of liquor? Then he bring money as his principal in this partnership. Say he brought 100,000, his principal in this partnership. We don't ask him at all. And this is a Sharia requirement, not to ask him, where did you get your money from? It's none of our business. And the standard of Sharika issued by AWOFI, which is really, it issues standards. Until now, they have issued some 50 plus standards for the good practice of the industry, the Islamic finance banks. So that standard on Sharika say that you don't ask about the source of funds when you put a principal to the Sharika. It's none of our business to ask, where did you get your source from? So this is the false characteristics. You really need to keep them in mind and don't make that mistake at all. Okay. Now, bearing risk, what risk that must be borne if you own an item and you own it for the objective of selling it? Of course, you have to borne property risk, and you borne also market risk, because your objective is to sell it. If prices in the market went down, so you have a price risk, and if you didn't find a buyer, you have a liquidity risk. You could not liquidate the item that you have. So, but are both of them necessary all the time? Which one of them is necessary? The property risk is necessary. And the market risk, we may avoid it. And the Islamic banks, in fact, avoided in the murabaha. And murabaha, they get a promise from a buyer before they buy the item from the market, from the seller. So they buy the item only after they got this promise that I'll buy it from you and give you a profit of X amount of dollar, for instance. So we avoid market risk by this promise and by applying the concept of murabaha. Okay. What is this? Okay, which risk is relates to earning? It is a property risk. Okay, there is a hadith by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is a good hadith. Al-kharaju bid-daman. Some imams of mosque, and sorry, I need to say that in most of the times, imams of mosque know very little about Islamic finance and about the details of riba and what is haram and what is not haram. So they always tell you the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-kharaju bid-daman," and there is a rule in fiqh rule is called al-ghunmu bil-ghurm, which has exactly the same meaning. Al-kharaju bid-daman means that return is related to liability of risk. But this relation is not a causality relationship. That's the point. Many people, because of the letter B here, by they translated is caused by liability of risk. It is not caused, and we discussed it before, that risk does not create return. The property is what creates return. And what is the risk that is necessary is the property risk, and the market risk, if you avoid it, will be your pleasure. And the word al-kharaju bid-daman, although this is the text of the hadith, B, with the letter B, but the letter B has several meaning. One of its meaning is by, and another meaning means is related to. So the appropriate meaning of it, when you look at the hadith in its details, a man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He bought a sheep, and it was 2 or 3 days before that. And when he bought it, the sheep was giving huge amount of milk. The first day it gave good amount of milk. Second day gave a little bit less, but it was good. But on the third or fourth day, the amount of milk was extremely low, extremely small. So he came to the Prophet and told him, well, the seller really was not honest with me. Apparently, he did not milk that sheep for a day or two before that it was full of milk. And I thought it gives that much milk every day. So the Prophet ordered the seller, give him your money back and take your sheep back. So the seller told him, but he took the milk for the last 2 or 3 days. Shouldn't he pay me also for this milk that he took? The Prophet told him, no, he shouldn't pay you for that milk, because suppose the sheep died during these 3 days. Can he come back to you to it? It is already sold to him and he is the owner. And if it died, he will bear that risk, the risk of death of that sheep. And because he bears that risk, he what is related to it is the earning. He earned it because he is owner. And he earned that milk during these 2-3 days because he was the owner. And now it turned out that the contract need to be reversed. You take your sheep and give him the money you paid him, and he gained that milk for these few days, because that milk was produced by his property, that should it died at that time, he would be the loser. You won't be the loser. So this is really the meaning. It is related, but what produces the return is not the liability for risk, rather it is the property. And when you own a property, you also bear its risk, the property risk. Okay. Islamic finance contract, we come back to the basic again, either sharing, contract that involve partnership or sale, exchange, or lease. It's a kind of exchange, but exchange of usufruct for price. In sale, it's exchange of commodities for price. And of course, we talk about, when we are talking about finance contract, Islamic finance contract, we are then talking about Islamic finance contract, meaning there is a time span between delivery and payment. So this is the concept of financing, is that time span in sale. The concept of financing in leasing is buying the usufruct without getting the usufruct without paying the price of the asset itself. You pay only a small amount, which is a fraction really of the price of the asset, a small amount, which is the price of the usability only. But in this session, we have several other issues, and we are already above 8. Let's take them very quickly. These are 3 conditions that we usually include in sale. Delinquency fine. Is it permissible or not? Third-party guarantee, and we will define it. And again, the issue of ceiling on profit. Let's look at these. Deficiency, delinquency fine. If you don't pay on time, we have to charge you X amount or X percentage. Both of them, are they permissible or not? Let's look at what is the objective of a delinquency fine. Delinquency fine has 2 objectives. One, to deter the obligor from delaying or from not fulfilling his responsibility. To deter him, to kind of give him an incentive to be on time, to make on time payment, and deter him from any delay. Okay. The other objective is to compensate him for any loss that is caused by the delay. Can we compensate for the time value of the debt? You did not pay the debt on time. Your debt was due on 31st of October, and you did not pay it until 7th of November. Is there a time value of debt? No. In reality, there is no time value of debt. And this is why in Sharia, we do not accept to pay an increment for the debt, because there is no time value of debt. The debt does not create additional value through time or through any other thing. You put some oxygen or hydrogen on it, on the debt, and again does not generate any added value. Or you wait on it for time, again does not generate added value. So notice, please, it is not the Islamic system refuses that. It is the reality that debt does not generate added value, and this is why the Islamic system does not recognize an added value to it. It's not in Islam we do this. No, in Islam we do the reality, the truth, the real thing. So this is it's really a big difference. So I don't want any one of you in the questions to say, oh, in Islam we don't accept to pay increment on a debt. Yes, we don't accept to pay increment on a debt because there is no increment in a debt. Lost opportunity. What is lost opportunity? You did not lose opportunity. If you give me a loan on just before the crisis of 2008, on the day I think was 13, you give me a loan on 14 of September in 2008, and your alternative was to use it to buy shares in the stock market, and next day the shares went down 50 or 55% in one day. You should give me more money even. You should thank me a lot and tell me, okay, here, you take half of this amount that of the loan, or you take 20% of it, don't pay it back, because you saved me from this big loss. So lost opportunity is an illusion. Literally, it is said by economists, but it is illusion. It's not a reality. And this is what makes the realism an important condition in Islam. And this could be a loss or gain. But the third one, how about out-of-pocket cost? Because you delayed the payment, I called my lawyer and asked him to write a letter to you, threaten you that he will sue you in court. And that letter, the lawyer billed me $250. This $250 is out-of-pocket cost. I can't charge it to you. I can deduct it from the delinquency fine. But what do I do with delinquency? I want to make a high delinquency fine to deter you. This is the main objective. And we made the contract, and I intended that if you pay me on time, I am fine. I don't need any extra. But you did not pay me on time. You hurt me, yes, but you really did not. I did not lose time value of debt, and I did not use opportunity, lost opportunity or opportunity cost. These are illusions, but I paid $250 to the lawyer to send you that letter. That you pay me. That I deducted from the delinquency fine. What do I do with the remaining amount? Three options. Either I give it to charity, and I mentioned in the contract, you will have to pay a high fine, and of course my intention is deterrence, and I don't want to collect that fine. But if I have to collect it because you actually made delay, I will collect it, I'll take it from you, and I'll keep only any out-of-pocket cost, and the remaining I give it to charity because it's not halal to me. It's an increment in a debt. For me, it's an increment in a debt. It's not halal to me. I was happy with my original contract, but things happened that you delayed it. So this is act of God, really. For me, it's act of God. I don't want you to delay. I make you pay for that delay, but I don't take it to me. If I take it to me, it would be haram, it would be interest. I give it to charity. For the poor and needy, it's not haram. Or in some contract, we force you to make a charity. When you pay to us, we tell you you have to give us a receipt also that you paid to a charity XYZ a given amount, which is a fine because you delayed. So you send us the receipt to charity along with the payment in some of Islamic contract. Sometimes I may credit it to you as reduction of the last payment. You delayed me a few days, I take from you like advance payment of the last payment that is due on you after 48 months, for instance. So in the last payment, I consider this as partial payment of the last payment. Just like I am punishing you really by taking this amount from you in advance, and keep it. So this is the way we deal with delinquency. We impose delinquency fine, but we deal with it always in this way. Third party guarantee. Now, let me tell you this. If I own a property, I own money, suppose $100, I can do anything with it. Part of it, I can guarantee you. Go ahead and make partnership with X or Y or Z, invest with him. And if you make any loss, I'll compensate you from my own money. We will stop here because it's already 8:30 almost. And sorry that there will be no time unless we can take a question, one or two questions. And I see only 6 people in attendance now. Hello?
Yes, now it's just people.
Okay. Anyway, so sorry, this session really is long, and we will try to recover the part that we are missing from it next time, inshallah. And next time will be Ramadan. كل عام وأنتم بخير. For all of you, have happy Ramadan and happy fasting, and inshallah acceptable fasting by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even those who, there may be non-Muslims among you, I don't know, but even non-Muslim, try fasting once or twice during this month. At least you'll find that really fasting is a good training for the body and the stomach. Sorry for taking all the time. We'll try to recover, inshallah, next time. So you are going to inform me before Sunday, inshallah, what is the time, or whether we will take leave for the whole month. Anyway, only 3 meetings, because the fourth one, I have to take that leave out. The second Sunday of Ramadan. So we have 3 meetings. Either we take them, inshallah, at 3:30 and continue with that, or we leave it until after Ramadan. Barakallahu bikum, and thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
الله فيكم أستاذ، جزاكم الله خير.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.